And you may say, well, who can see it if it's utterly transcendental? And the Sufis answer, the common answer for this is, La yara Allah illa Allah. Which Amin, of course, knows what this means, huh? Nobody sees God except for God. So your perspective really would have to have changed. And isn't this kufr in itself? At this point, for some people, we already have walked into the land of kufr, but for the Sufi, this is merely following the traditions of our Prophet, peace be upon him. My servant does not desist, does not stop in approaching me with excessive loving devotion until I love him or her. And when I love him or her, I become her hearing, seeing, her tongue, hand, and her foot. So it can either be the faculty or the actual bodily member. And it is by me that he is hearing, and by me that she is seeing, and by me that he is speaking, and by me she is grasping, and by me that he is striding. See, so this is a well-known hadith, and there are many other examples that insinuate the same meaning, that it's possible to become the aperture at the middle of the day when the sun is outside. You will get a period of time when you cannot see the mirror because the sun is shining fully into it and you can only see the sun. This is the meaning of this, you see. So there's a possibility. Now, he goes on to say, وجود تو همه خار است و خاشاق بیرون انداز اکنون جمله را پاک چو تو بیرون شدی او اندر آید و تو به تو جمال خود نماید. So he says, your existence is all thorns and weeds. Go now and make a clean sweep of all of this. When you leave, he, God, true existence, will come within. And through you, but without you, will show his beauty. Sort of emphasizing again this idea of the mirror. Now, I won't go on in this vein, but I think you get the idea. In that particular chapter, a different chapter, Shabbos story is emphasizing the connection between the experience of transcendental existence and its identity with unity. So unity is the absence of multiplicity. Another way to say it is multiplicity is a world of shadows, and unity is a world of light that does not permit for shadows. Or unity is such a strong manifestation of existence that one is aware of the latent existence of stars or candles or lamps, but they simply can't be recognized when the bright sun of the midday is shining. So, coming back to Faisal's question, because Faisal already has said that he understands it from a second translation that I've given, huh? And do you see why Qa'im means it's sustained, like both infidelity or denial and faith, they only have any existence in a context. And that context is there has to be a world, there have to be minds, there has to be a reason for going astray. Like if you were in Alast, this would not be an issue. Alast being, of course, the domain prior to coming into existence, when everyone agrees, right? Alastu beravikum. Bala, Cholu Bala Shaitna. So God says to them, no one disagrees. All the sinner, everyone says, yes, we recognize you are our Lord. We recognize you are the only existence. So it's only in this domain of the senses that this can become an issue. But since you brought it up, what I was saying is there's an opportunity, which is, what if we weren't going to use the religious language at all? And I have so many different kinds of friends. And remember the story Moses and the shepherd, and God admonished Moses and says, Moses, I didn't bring you to separate people from me. I brought you to unify people to me. See this famous story of Rumi's. So my feeling is, it doesn't matter who I'm speaking with. If they are a sensitive, present, tuned-in person, if they have any thought, if they have any appreciation, I'm going to try to find out what in this world has meaning for them. And that's going to be very easy, isn't it? You don't even have to be sneaky. You can just be carrying on a conversation, and you will find out slowly but surely, or right away, or to some extent, you will find out what kind of meaning. Now, what if they already know who I am, and they say, well, you're a Muslim, and I hate Muslims? I'll say, well, I don't blame you. We have our problems, but usually that's not going to happen. Usually there's going to be the conversations will be more innocent, and people are more polite, and so forth. But if I find out that a person is an agnostic, or let's say an atheist, then I'm always interested in knowing what they regard as an absolute. Isn't it true that we regard God as an absolute? I mean, those of us who are Muslims, we regard God as an absolute. We turn to Him. We believe He has the only existence, the only necessary existence. We have a derived existence, and so forth. So we're not ashamed, but we tend not to speak that way to people who aren't religious. But this is how we feel. If they want to know, we're happy to tell them. But if someone says in this conversation, you try it, you will see, they'll probably think about it, and they might say, well, I believe in justice. There's not enough justice in this world. I believe in justice, and I will fight for justice. And all you have to do is look at the proliferation of justice movements in the Western world to see that this is a very real ethical, and I would call it spiritual movement, to give justice to everyone, so everybody should have justice. And it seems like an impossible task, doesn't it? But everyone is striving for this. So if I know that somebody has justice, I don't in any way wish to harm myself by diminishing their connection with reality. Rather, what I would prefer doing is coming into their point of view and quietly worshiping Muqsit. What else do we have for words for justice? Adl. We have several words, even Haq. We have several words that we know we are supposed to worship justice. They might even be surprised. We say, pull out the prayer rug, justice. We are going to pray to justice, you see. So what are you talking about, see? So we don't want to go to that extent. But we would, because when we pray to God, to Allah, we are praying to the divine names. We are praying to God as transcendent and God in all of His potential. And therefore we are obligated to worship His name, the just, the true, the equitable. We are obligated. Yes, we are obligated. So we have absolutely no problem with people involved with justice movements. Now, can we judge? Somebody say, well, are you going to, these people who want transgender rights in public toilets, are you actually going to support this? We say, well, frankly, I don't know if I have the smarts or the ethical standing to decide who gets to do this, but it appears these people have rights and they want their rights. And who am I to deny their rights, you see? And so you can see wars between, or certainly struggles between religious and non-religious people. And paradoxically, we see very many religious people, whether they be Christian or Muslim, rather stuck in their viewpoint. We should say we don't know. The safest thing we can say as human beings is we don't really know. God knows, meaning the truth is there, and we have only a small grasp of the truth. We can see their suffering, and if they're suffering, we shouldn't encourage suffering or more suffering. So at the very least, we should try to lessen suffering. And we can just look around the world and think about Iraq or Syria and how different the struggle is for justice there. It's a struggle for water, the struggle to not be forced into sexual slavery, or there's so many immense and horrifying struggles. But in our own Bay Area, the struggles may be a little bit milder, but they're still very important to the people here. So do you see my point is wujud is the mother. It's really, Quran does not use wujud the way the philosophers and the Sufis, the existentialist Sufis, use wujud. Quran is not using wujud like this. Quran is using Rahman, is using Hay, usually for existence. It's using, that God is using his own divine names to describe himself. He's not using words adopted from the philosophical traditions and such. And wujud in Quran is a question of finding, usually, of discovery, that to the existence is what is found and known by God. So the whole existential tradition, it is not exactly equivalent to its place in Islamic thought, but we have a Sufi perspective which allows us to explore. I've broached it in a number of ways with Westerners, and one of the ways that I've asked you guys about, to remind me, what does Heidegger say, for example, about existence and let's say beauty? Have we talked about this? Like, who is Heidegger? Come on, I know that especially Iranians, if there were a bunch of Iranians in here, they're so interested in this. But does anybody? I bet, Norman, you've studied Heidegger a little bit, I suppose.
Studied,
huh? No, I'm sorry?
Studied, no, I didn't say study. I'm aware of who he is. But
yeah. Amina, have you studied Heidegger at all? Oh, good. Tell me about Heidegger.
But you want to know what he says about justice, and I don't know that.
No, let's go to beauty. See, what I want to demonstrate is that we can connect to the Western, connecting to the Western tradition is really a prop and an aid. What we really want to do is sincerely connect to all people. So that would be my advice and my objective. And my question is for myself, how can I not position? There's going to be the issue of transactional positioning. So how could I keep an eye-to-eye transactional positioning where I don't care if they want to look down this way, but I want to keep it a lateral, parallel, equitable interchange, a humane and human interchange. See, that's all I'm talking about. This is the Sufi way. This is the way of Islam. So I have to be careful not about the other person really. As a Sufi, I have to be careful about my reaction. Will I somehow think I am better because I'm a Muslim and I know about 99 names and they're talking about one name, for example. But what do I actually know about these 99 names? Very little, probably. See, that's how I should be thinking about it. Now the question is, where is our common ground? And philosophically, where is our common ground? Well, I'm sorry that very few people have. Nobody needs to study Heidegger. All I was trying to point out with Heidegger, other than the fact that he supported the Nazi regime, because that's what he was raised in, so unfortunately everybody has some dirty laundry, and he was a supporter of the civilization he lived in. I don't mean active supporter, I mean he was in the background, not objecting very much to this. But he says an interesting thing. He says there is existence and there is pure existence. But it's hard to know. Difficult to know. So we know it in a hazy fashion. But sometimes there is a medium, an intermediary that allows us to suddenly see existence more fully. And that's where he positions beauty. I told you last time when I said, you remember when Ustad Khalili asked me if I believed in God? My first surprise was, God, a Muslim has yet to ask me this question. Usually they're more polite because they don't want to insult their guests, you see. But we've been talking just literally a few minutes, and he says, do you believe in God? I said, yes. Why do you believe in God? Well, I haven't been asked that question either. I'm sort of on the spot. Best thing is go with your first answer, huh? I said, because of beauty. I believe in God because of beauty. And I will stick to that answer. I will hold to that answer. So, and Heidegger, I don't know anything at that time about Heidegger. But later I studied a little bit and realized that I needed to know more about some of the Western philosophers. Heidegger has a huge volume of work. It's very complex. I don't mean to trivialize or minimize his work. I'm just trying to show you that if you're with a Westerner and you're trying to find out what life is about, what is the meaning of life to a Westerner? Now, there are nihilists. That's a different story. But even there, we could understand even a nihilist by understanding the divine names. Huh? We could understand. It's a little harder to appreciate, but we can still understand the idea of attenuation. So how can we understand that? Rahmati sabiqat ghazabi. That there's actually an order in the divine names. What does this mean? What's this mean? My mercy is what? It's greater. It precedes either ontologically, or it's like two horses racing and it's ahead, right? It's ahead. It precedes ontologically. The mercy precedes the wrath. So I can understand, therefore, that the scenario given of the divine names, in addition to Quranic explanation and hadith, in addition to spiritual experience, shows that there is a regime or hierarchy of the names. And the greatest of those names, God had told Muhammad, peace be upon him, that you can call me Allah, or you can call me what? Rahman. Showing the immensity of the name Rahman. the unparalleled immensity of that name amidst the divine names. The mercy, the unquestioning mercy that gives life. This is really the existential tradition of Quran. But the mercy also has very much the quality of kindness or love. So conscience, Vajdan, also coming from this root of existence, or really the mercy, Tarahum, from the mercy, or Vajdan, if we're talking about conscience in the philosophical and psychological language of the Arabs and the Persians, it means a reversion to what is essential and truly existing, and even to what is ecstatic, because by definition, Vajd means ecstasy. So there's a connection always to this idea of the transcendental existence. And so, if I see somebody in great trouble, I realize that, is there any way at all that I can find my way in? Because at the other end of Rahman, we would find certain names. Like this morning, one of the people I was speaking to said that they have experienced muzil, having been humiliated, having been abased, and how this was a teacher. I said, yeah, I can really understand how muzil could be a teacher. I think every one of us probably could understand if we've been humiliated and fallen down and really been down and out, we could understand how that was actually ended up being a teacher for us. But for some people, it's just that far away from suicide, let's say. So it could be that they're in big trouble for this reason. See, so sometimes the interaction is, again, remember the idea was how to keep eye to eye in this conversation. It's so easy to think, oh, what a poor fellow this is, I'm in such a better situation. This is really where self-observation is important, so that even if we should think or insinuate anything within ourself, we are observing the operation of nafs. We are observing selfishness and superiority in ourself. So we have this perspective, we should be aware of God, and we are trying to stay at this human, true level of communication with the person across from us, even if they are in this. Again, I'm talking about what we all know goes on in a modern secular culture, where in the absence of traditional frameworks for meaning, including religion, people can sometimes lose their way to an internal harmony or sense of meaning in life. And that's where there may be a religious person who is quite sure of the meaning of life, but may be less authentic than this person who is nihilistic. So all of this, trying to address Faisal's point that he brings up, because doesn't kufr and iman, those are the two words he used in that line, or what did he use?
وحدت توحید و بت پرستی کفر و دین.
Yeah, kufr din. So we have din as religion, or the faith, and kufr is denial or covering. Kufr can traditionally mean just deciding that the prophet was a liar, for example. But usually kufr means to cover and deny the actual meaning of the revelation itself, and it has this idea of covering over something, obscuring something. And deen has the sense of the faith, the ability to communicate with God, implicit in the meaning of din is conversation and communication with God. Even the ability to bargain with God, so to speak. So welcome, Zaki. How are you? Come and join us. Pull up a chair. And so he's saying, since both of these are sustained by existence, then the essence of unification, Tawheed, is in idol worship. Well, this, again, Shaban Stari is one of these guys like, have you ever seen these movies where, Three Stooges movies where they have fleas and they put a bunch of fleas down the back of the person, this kind of thing, Or Tintin, the Tintin series, a French series. So he's he's a Sufi, he's an irritant. He wants to irritate the narrow-minded and egotistical preacher. And he's trying to challenge this person to understand that, in fact, there is an ocean. There's an ocean of existence, and this ocean is the same thing, whether it is sustaining a sharp wave or a soft wave, it is the same ocean of existence. And we can go to Rumi to help us again with this. But on Shabbos story, what I just want to point out again is he's in the school of Sheikh Ibn Arabi. He is essentially his amazing feat was to bring together the Persian school of love and the existentialist school of Ibn Arabi. And to do so in a very concise and short but difficult book, that we're talking about now. And so as he says, if you wanted, since, like if we translate a la Rumi, we'd say, since this wave and that wave are both sustained by the ocean, the essence of unification is to go ahead and worship the waves, knowing that they are actually the ocean. Okay, that's what he means. And if you don't see that, then it would be good to open the eye of the heart. It would be good to, because in the Sufi way, they follow the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. God says, orders the Prophet as usual, gives him some directive. He says, "Qul هذه سبيلي أدعو إلى الله على بصيرة أنا ومن اتبعني وسبحان الله وما أنا من المشركين." God says, Muhammad, tell them, this is my path, to call people to God according to heart vision and spiritual insight. Me, myself, and any who follow in this way after me. Glory be to God, and I am not one of the idolaters. Well, if we look at the linkage of ideas in that verse, which is found at the end of the chapter Joseph, and which is used traditionally to initiate sheikhs in any line of Sufism, we see that, in fact, he cannot, even if he ever was an idol worshiper, he simply does not have the ability to be an idol worshiper. It's impossible to distinguish when one sees the source of existence sustaining everything. It's frankly impossible to be an idol worshiper at that point. One has lost the ability to see the differentiation. One sees the mercy, one sees the sea of existence, and This is the Sufi way, is based on basira. We say love, but love has to be a kind of love that sees clearly. A lot of love blinds, does it not? What's called love could blind you. Now, if it's blinding some egotistical nafs, well, so much the better. But if it's blinding your spiritual insight, then this is not good. So it can cut either way, this kind of passion, I mean. But here, let's see, we can turn to Rumi, and keep me posted when is the afternoon prayer, huh?
We have about 20 minutes or something.
And we can postpone it a little bit, huh?
Sure.
I have to leave at 7:30, but I would like to say the afternoon prayer with you. So what we'll do, now let's see, what was it? It was last time, huh? Maybe I saw you guys last assembly, and maybe in the Mother's Day meeting we had. Somehow it came up, and I was remembering Rumi, he enjoys punning, he enjoys enriching stories with linguistic puns and profound insights that are expressed through them. And he says, Cheshme hes hamchun kafe dastas tobas. He says, Nis de kafro bar hamay u dastras. Cheshme darya digara so kaf digar. Kaf behel was didae darya negar. You guys remember this? I was quoting to you because Rumi says in Persian, this palm of the hand is called kaf. And it just so happens this is exactly the same spelling as the foam of the waves. So he says, many people have told the story of the elephant in the dark, but I'm going to tell you the story in a more beautiful and ornamented way that has never been told this way before. And frankly, if we look at the difference of his telling and the other telling, it's largely based upon his ability to merge the idea of the senses represented by the palm of the hand, feeling the elephant in the dark, and the wordplay of that to the idea of the foam on the wave. Because think of the foam is on a wave which is on an ocean. So what he says is the eye of the senses is no more than that palm of the hand. It is no more than that. For the palm of the hand, there is no possibility of apprehending the whole of it. First line. Chesham, the eye of the senses. Now he says, Cheshme darya, says the eye of the ocean. Well, see, obviously he has to be in the role of punning. It wouldn't work in English very well because he switched from this eye of the palm to the eye of the ocean, but it makes perfect sense in Persian, doesn't it? There's a thing called tajnis, the punning of two words that are similar spelling, and different meaning. Huh? So he says, there is the eye of the ocean, and there is the palm of the hand, meaning they're not the same, is what he's trying to say. He says the eye of the ocean is one thing, the palm of the hand is something else. He says, abandon the palm of the hand and see through the seeing of the ocean. Look through the seeing of the ocean. Clearly referring to the hadith of Nawafel, huh? Clearly referring to that kind of seeing. Kaf behel, yani helidan ya heshtan, kaf behel was دیده دریا نگر از آن دیده دریا ببینید نگر نه. So through the eye, through the seeing of the ocean, you now look. So this is a huge leap, and the poem is throughout is complex like this, you see. Now, I was thinking about this, and I was thinking how often Rumi repeats these themes through the Masnavi. And it was of interest to me because I was trying to often explain that in zikr, the Sufi poet is not an entertainer, even though he or she may entertain. The Sufi poet may be a lyrical, meaning maybe a lyrical poet who is expressing some personal feelings, but more likely the Sufi poet is from an ecstatic point of view trying to show the way to that ecstasy, and will do anything he or she can to bring the reader into that perspective. And so I was realizing that we would see this poem. I knew that I had translated it already in several places. And one of my favorite ones, as you know, I will often quote Rumi, and I recommend that when you start your zikr, you think of this line, Dar gudoz in jumlatan ro dar basar, dar nazar ro dar nazar ro dar nazar. You've heard me recite this line. So Rumi says, melt all of this body in vision. Melt all of this body in spiritual seeing. Go within vision, within vision, within vision. But that is preceded by a poem that is referencing the earlier poem of the elephant that I mentioned to you, and that's what I want to read to you.